Hey Garden Nerds, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. I don't know about you, but the last few years have been rough. A lot of us need extra brain support. I know I do. If you're thinking about getting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire on their website to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp, that's HELP.com/GTOTW for Garden Nerd Tip of the Week today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/GTOTW. Now, on with the show. Welcome everyone to the Garden Nerd Tip of the Week podcast, where experts from around the world talk shop, share stories, and offer their favorite tip. I'm your host, Christy Wilhelmi. We're here at the Heirloom Expo in Ventura County, California, and my guest this week is Sara Patterson. Sara owns and runs Red Acre Farm and co-founded Red Acre Center, which is a nonprofit organization for food and agriculture. Sara is a firm believer in knowing where our food comes from and advocates for gardening and raising chickens to grow for ourselves and our community. Welcome to the podcast, Sara.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it took a while for us to figure out a time where we could meet. You're a busy lady.
You are too. I think between our schedules, it's
Yeah.
been fun, but we made it happen.
Yeah, and you have a really interesting story from what I read on your website. You started a CSA at age 14.
Yes, I did. I started at 14.
Where did that impulse come from?
I would have to say that at age 14, you're not like really thinking about, like all of the things that now I like am doing it for. It's just kind of fun to grow vegetables, and a CSA is you get money up front.
Right.
And you have like this built-in support system, so it was kind of like, this is a no-brainer. Like, I can pay for my farm and have a place to sell my vegetables, where farmers markets aren't as a secure way to sell. So I think that was like the original like idea of like a CSA. It just sounded like built-in community and money up front.
Yeah, and the fact that you had the wherewithal at 14 to understand that money up front is a better idea than work hard and then get paid.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe.
Maybe.
I know. So
that's really smart. So where is Red Acre Farm located?
So we are in Cedar City, Utah, which is southern Utah. If you know where Zion is, most people know where Zion is. We're 45 minutes from there, but we're at 5,900 feet.
Oh, wow.
So we're high elevation, and we have about a 60-day growing season. 60 to 90, so it can freeze anytime in June, and we've seen it freeze in August before. So I've actually, since I've been there, I've been living in Cedar for 18 years. We've had it snow on the 4th of July, which is kind of crazy.
I just need to clarify. You said you have a 60 to 90-day growing season.
I know, isn't it crazy?
Insane.
I know. So it is a desert. It's like a desert climate, so it's dry. Windy, but we do get snow during the winter. So cold, dry, high desert.
Holy cow, those are all the wrong things.
Doesn't that sound like where you want to grow food?
Pick a challenge.
Yeah. Definitely would not recommend like starting a farm there, but at 14,
you didn't know.
It sounds very smart.
And this is a double question. What are you growing there, and do you use greenhouses or anything like that?
Yes, so we grow almost everything that everyone else, like all the things that everyone else grows. I say we grow everything from arugula to zucchini. So we do grow everything. We just can't grow it all the time. We do have unheated greenhouses, so we have about 9 of them now.
Okay.
And we do grow year round. So using Elliot Coleman's Winter Harvest Handbook that came out years ago. He was our mentor for sure.
Okay.
Kind of the first one that was growing year round at that time in Maine. And so using those methods, and obviously ones that we've adapted for our area, we do harvest 52 weeks out of the year. So our CSA is year round, and we do a year-round farmers market, and our farm stand is stocked year-round. So
I am more and more astonished the more I talk with you. I grew in Southern California, where it's supposed to be really easy to grow everything, but it's hard. things don't work for like 3 months out of the year. When
Yeah,
it's too hot
not
and dry.
really. I know people say that. I'm like, you don't know what you're
You have
talking
no
about.
idea.
I know.
'Cause you know
You
exactly.
plant your tomatoes in February,
Yeah,
okay?
we do. We plant our tomatoes in March. Really,
Yeah, I
late
mean,
March.
like,
Yeah.
February, March, though, is
It's-
when you can, like, think about planting your
Exactly.
tomatoes outside, which is
And
mind-boggling
when are you
to me.
planting them?
We cannot plant them until the end of May at the earliest,
Okay.
and you might still get frozen. Like, June
Oh.
is if you want to be safe.
I am
So.
astonished. Are you raising animals there too? Let's
We
just throw something
yeah,
else in the
yeah,
mix.
right. So we do have a small flock of laying hens. I mean, small meaning a
100.
little over 100. Yeah. Um,
I have 4.
exactly. You know, it's all relative.
Yeah.
And then we have some milk animals. So we have a small herd of goats that we milk, and then a milk cow, because we make all of our own compost on our farm, and they produce a lot of manure
Yes, they do.
that we need for our compost. So that's
was it
kind of
like 120 pounds per animal per week or something
I
crazy
don't know.
like that. It's a
Some
lot.
crazy number. Yeah. So they produce all of the fertilizer for our farm. So we say that the milk is a byproduct. What we really want them for is their poop.
Yeah, exactly. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, I was going to mention Nikki Jabor. Have you read any of her books? She lives in Nova Scotia.
Okay.
And so she's gardening year round too, and she has
my
a book
gosh.
on the year round garden.
Yeah.
But it's more for home scale, not so much
yeah.
farmers. But I just want to plug her book for home gardeners who are trying to do
who
that.
want to do it.
So your talk here at the Heirloom Expo is about growing in different soils, and now I know why. God, and a very short growing season. Holy cow.
Yeah.
So what are some of the key things to remember when dealing with those growing conditions?
So, anything will grow if you water it, I found out, to a certain extent. It might not be as bountiful or as big, but water is a key factor. We actually had our well go down once, and my mom was like, if someone dies, it doesn't really matter. We can, like, keep going on. But we can't do anything without water.
No.
And so, living in those, being in that, like, water and wind, like getting some kind of windbreak is kind of our key thing. And the reason why my talk is kind of on that is because I moved from Los Angeles as a kid, and I had beautiful, rich, gorgeous soil that was like dark, and I moved and it was literally red dirt.
Dust,
like
yes,
dust,
it's
like
just
sand,
dust.
like, and it was not soil, it was dirt.
Yeah.
We're super mineral rich, but that doesn't mean that plants can access those minerals. So you have to make sure that you have the right balance, of course, of organic matter and stuff, so those minerals can start breaking down and the plants can take them.
So were you just adding tons and tons and tons of compost or other
Not
things
just
too?
compost, organic matter. I mean, when I started, so this was the first time I planted my garden was 2007. So it was kind of before this really, there were definitely people who have been doing this forever, right?
Yeah.
But it was before, like, JM had a book and the Market Gardener, like, before it was really, now I say that there's farm in a box. You order your BCS and you go to Neversink and get their tools, and Johnny's has their whole line. But there wasn't really all of this stuff then. It was kind of just like figuring it out. It was either like big farms, which were small to industrial ag, but like, really, I'm only on 2 acres, so I have not a lot of, it's a great size, but it's just like, I can't go buy a greenhouse from like Mega Greenhouse store, like Mega Greenhouse stores, their greenhouses are the size of one of my whole plots.
Right, exactly.
So it was just figuring out amending like leaves and getting any kind of organic matter at the time that I could get, because I wasn't making my own compost then. And so that's kind of how I started, is just like bringing in anything I could that I knew was clean.
And how long did it take for that soil to get to the point where it would sustain life?
I would say it's still, like, are we ever
We're
there?
still working on it. I know. I feel like I'm always working on mine.
I feel like even if you're in California, beautiful soil, like, you constantly, I feel like in a lot of ways compost is like sacrament for the earth. You need to give it something so it can give you something.
Yeah.
And it's the only thing that we can really give our land is this, the compost that we make. And so I think that it definitely, after like a few years, it was definitely doing better and growing stuff. But I just feel like you're never quite there. And that's why we're all here, is to just keep building and making it better and finding new ways and having these conversations.
That is
So,
absolutely true. I've been working on my incredibly sandy soil for
Yeah.
25 years. And
Yeah.
I still feel like it drains way too fast.
yeah.
And I'm putting in tons of compost and it still drains way too fast.
Yeah, yeah. And it's hard to find the right kind of compost for your area. And that's
Yeah.
why we started making our own, because it's like we could get what we needed
Mm-hmm.
for our compost. I mean, for our farm, in our compost. And it's crazy because we only have 2 acres, super tiny, but like our one quarter acre plot is like sandy,
Mm-hmm.
and then our back like half acre plot is like clay,
Oh,
and it's like we're
lovely.
only, so it's just funny how different it can be, even just between a small space.
In those microclimates. Yeah. Speaking of challenges, on the personal side, you suffered several setbacks, when your father died suddenly and your house then caught on fire.
Yes, I know.
How do you keep going after that?
How do you keep going? Well, I was 20 when my father passed away, and he was like my right-hand man. So my parents, at the age of 16, they're crazy and amazing and wonderful, and they both said that they would work for me full time
Oh my God.
if I could like cover the expenses for our family.
Mhm.
I don't know many parents who would do that or buy into their child
That's incredible.
in that way. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm still here today talking about this, is because I did have people that believed in me.
Yeah.
It's very empowering to have adults that are willing to buy into a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, at the age of 20, like, my parents could always go back to work. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of had to decide if this is what I wanted to do and if this was going to be like what I was doing. And so for me, you just kind of have to put the commitment in and know that what you're doing, like, if you know that that's what you're supposed to be doing, then I feel like it's kind of easy, I mean, not that it's easy, but
Never
like,
easy.
you just have to know that these are things that happen. Like,
Mhm.
things die. I mean, especially if you farm or garden, you
Okay,
know that
yeah.
like death is part of life,
Mm-hmm.
and things, there's so many transitions and seasons. And if you watch that, you just kind of learn to embrace it. Maybe never completely, can wrap your head around it
Yeah.
all the time, but you just have to like, live in the moment and kind of roll through with it and know that there's going to be something else that happens. Like last year we had a hailstorm. We haven't had a hailstorm, and it destroyed basically everything. Like,
no.
our English breakfast radishes snapped in half. Like, it was insane.
Wow.
Like, the damage. Even our root crops like had chunks missing out of them.
That's
So
big hail.
like, you never know what's going to happen, and so you just have to like roll with it in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's helpful or not, but that's what I've learned, is just to embrace nature and everything, and just kind of have a community around you that will support you is important.
It
too.
is important. I think, what is that? The blue zones, the thing they all have in common is community.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
important. So you advocate for growing food at home and in the community.
Yeah.
Is that the focus of the Red Acre Center?
So Red Acre Center is focused on education, mainly for farmers, because I started at 14. Everything I was doing was kind of illegal, and my parents were not. I know, here I am on a podcast saying this. My parents were not in the farming industry. My mom did fundraised and raised money for nonprofits, and my dad was in construction, so they didn't know this world. This wasn't where their niche was. And so I found out that like most of what I was doing I couldn't do in some shape, form, in some way.
Some surprise.
Yeah.
Whoops.
So I wanted to make sure that the next generation was able to do this without, like eating an elephant. That's what, it's
Eating
like,
an
how do
elephant.
you eat an elephant one bite
One
at a
bite
time?
at a
But
time.
it wasn't legal to eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah.
And so it was insane. And I was like, we need to make sure that our state is set up so the next generation can be able to farm legally and sell food and do this. And even in your backyard, or kids that want to start, because maybe you want to be a farmer, but you don't know, and you don't want to go and get through all that red tape and then find out, oh, I really don't want to do
farm.
this, or I really just want to do this as a hobby. This isn't what I want to do as an income. But now you've spent and invested so much. And so that's really, a lot of it is education. A ton of it is education. But we also do a lot of lobbying, and we passed over 19 bills in the state of Utah that are farm related. Yeah, it's
That's
kind of
amazing.
exciting. Anyway.
I think because every time the farm bill rolls around, I cringe, because I know like nothing's going to change that is substantial and significant for the people who are doing
the grassroots
part. It's all for industrial agriculture.
We were in DC this last May with the Organic Trade Association lobbying in DC, which we've only done state, and it was a whole different world. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
But the farm bill is up this year, and so we have been working on some federal legislation, which is new to me and a totally different world, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But it's fascinating to see what's happening on that front.
Anything you care to share on developments?
So there's some really neat things going on with the organic industry. I mean, it still has a long way to go, but like the money that you get, like when you look at how much research money is going towards organic research and how much is going to industrial and how much organic brings in, like dollar wise, like we're trying to balance that out. But the thing that we've really been working on is more animal related, and it's called the Prime Act.
Okay.
And it's a nonpartisan bill, and it would make it so people who are smaller, who are producing animals and want to butcher or sell the meat would be able. Well, we tried to do that. That's not really hard. That's really hard.
Yeah.
But we're going to make it so there are state inspected, basically like micro, because now everything is federally regulated when it comes to beef and pork. So this would make it so states could kind of have their own inspection and do it with smaller butchers. And it would really change it would change small producers' worlds immensely, but it would be less than 1% of meat in America. Which, when you think about it, it's like we're not even making a big deal, but at the same time, we're making a huge deal.
Right. And just to clarify, listeners, because they're really everything, if you eat meat, everything you have ever eaten goes through one of four processing plants in the country.
If it's beef or pork, unless you're getting it from a small farm who's going through all of this red tape, but it's still crazy what they have to do. But it's really 4 packing houses, which is kind of scary. I mean, that's a food security problem.
Yeah.
Like if you don't even think about health, like all of our meat goes through 4 packing houses, and we learned 3 years ago during COVID, we saw how that worked.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I know there are small farms who have gone through that red tape to get to the point where they can process their own birds. And a lot of the ways they do it is that CSA model is like they have to, like people have to come to the farm to pick it up.
Yeah,
because they can't sell it
birds
somewhere.
are different than this is red meat, so this is a little different, but it's still just such a process. It's like, and that's why we really we want people to, our motto for our nonprofit is by feeding yourself and your neighbor, the world will be fed. So if everyone grows food for themselves and their neighbor, then we might not need these packing out. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't
like if we all have 4 chickens in our backyard.
Right.
You don't need 100.
It's true. And that said, I've been vegetarian for 30 years, so mine are pets and have names, but
you can eat the eggs.
It's true.
So, I mean, that's what that's why we're like, you have to start somewhere.
Right.
And if people do something, then it's better than nothing.
Yes, exactly.
So.
All right, so before we get to our next question, because I'm fascinated, I want to mention again that this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp offers access to licensed, trained, experienced, and accredited psychologists, marriage and family therapists, clinical social workers, and board-licensed professional counselors. Check them out at betterhelp.com. That's better, BetterHelp.com/GTOTW for a 10% discount on your first month. All right. Fun question. What's your favorite part about running a farm in CSA?
What's my favorite part? We've talked about this a little bit, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to say the community.
The community. Do you have
Yeah.
volunteers who come out and help?
We do have some. I mean, some of it's just my crew, but it's like the community that comes around a farm and the people and the kids and the families. That's really why I do it. Like, you guys can grow food in California way better than we can in Southern Utah, if you've noticed. We're not feeding we're not feeding the world in Utah. That's not where we are. But just the community that it brings and the education piece and that whole narrative of watching kids like being on a farm and seeing animals that don't get that opportunity, that's kind of where like it warms my heart, that I'm like, we're really feeding people. And these are like, every once in a while I have to pinch myself and I'm like, I'm really a farmer and I feed people. Like, it's exciting.
Yeah.
So I would say that is my favorite part.
And what's
And good food, of course.
Of course. The best food. And then conversely, what's your least favorite part?
What's my least favorite part? Being in charge.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I know. It really, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate, like, I don't want to manage people. I don't want to deal with, like all the pressure of making the decisions. Because in the end, if you make the wrong one, it's your fault.
It's on you. Yep, the buck stops here.
So I have to say that's my least favorite part. Sometimes I do just want to be my own person so I don't have to be in charge of anyone.
I hear you on that. I hear you on that. All right, it is tip time.
Tip time. Oh,
Do you
dear.
have a favorite tip you'd like to share with the gardener?
Do I have a favorite tip? You asked me this earlier and I said it would be the hardest part. The tips are always so hard. So one thing that I like to say is a quick tip if you've never gardened. I always say plant radishes because they come up in 3 days and they make you feel successful even if you end up feeding them to your chickens. So there's something that I'm like, if you want to just feel successful, plant radishes even if you don't eat them, and they're pretty.
With radishes, because a lot of people don't like radishes.
Right.
But if you roast them,
Roasting them's great.
that transforms them into something
yes.
else.
And I really love butter and fresh tiny radishes are the best things ever. So pick them when they're young and eat them with butter and salt. Your life will be changed.
Perfect.
So that's one of my tips. And then the other thing that I'm going to say as a tip is support the next generation of farmers and support your local farmers in your community. Even if you have a garden, like, just knowing that there's people out there that care is really important, and supporting the next generation because we're losing our other generation.
We are.
So it's like, investing in the next generation farmers is really important. I know that's the broad tip. So we got a broad and
That's it's perfect. A specific and a broad tip. Thank you so much, Sarah, for that tip, those tips, and for being a guest on the Gardenerd Tip of the Week podcast.
Yes, thank you for
Where
having
can
me.
people find you?
Where can you find me? So Instagram, of course, it's like the thing. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Red Acre Farm. And then our website is redacrefarmcsa.org. And we have a farm stand, so we're right off the I-15 freeway. So if anyone's going to any of the lovely national parks in Cedar, you can just stop by the farm and say hi and stop at the farm stand if you're in Utah.
Fantastic. You'll find a link to Red Acre Farm this week at Gardenerd.com. We'll also post links to where you can book a farm stay at Red Acre Farm and volunteer. That's it for this week. Subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen. Visit us for tons of free information at Gardenerd.com. Consider becoming a Patreon subscriber to support all the free stuff that we do here at Gardenerd. And of course, special thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp. You'll find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter under Gardenerd1. On Facebook is Gardenerd.com, and of course, our Gardenerd YouTube channel. Happy gardening!